You're listening to the weekly Parsha Podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Shemesh Israel 5785, 2025. This week's Parsha is Parshat Bo. And in our Parsha, the Jewish people experience the incredible miracles, the final plagues. Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, "HaChodesh hazeh lachem, Rosh Chadashim, this is your month. Nissan, the month of Pesach, of Passover, the month of renewal, the month of the spring. And this is the month of Am Yisrael. This is the time when Am Yisrael is finally going to be redeemed. And Am Yisrael has gone through tremendously difficult times, 210 years in Egypt, 86 intense years of slavery. Am Yisrael is downtrodden. Am Yisrael's babies were thrown into the sea. Am Yisrael went through difficult times. We went through very, very difficult times. And HaChodesh hazeh lachem, it's finally, after months and months and months of the plagues, Moshe Rabbeinu came almost, I believe, a full year before. After all of this, Hashem says, this is your month. This is when you're finally going to experience your redemption. The Medrash says that there is a conversation between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael, as it were. And the conversation goes like this. The Medrash first brings the pasuk, HaChodesh hazeh lachem. This is your month. This is when you're going to be redeemed. The Medrash says, Kol dodi nezeba. We have a pasuk in Shir HaShirim. Pasuk says, the voice of my beloved, which is Am Yisrael speaking of Hashem's voice, as it were. It's coming. You hear it coming. You're standing on your merpesah, you're sitting in your living room, and you hear the voice of your beloved coming up the steps, coming down the road. Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying, here it is. We're getting to the time of redemption. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Nechemia Rabbanon. So the Medrash says, a number of places where we see, as it were, the voice of Hashem is heard. It's on its way. And yet there's a disbelief. There's a pushback. Could it really be? Can it really be the moment of redemption? So the first pshat in the Medrash is that it's referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe came to the Jewish people and said to them, this is your month. Now you're going to be redeemed. They said to Moshe, our teacher Moshe, how can it be that we are going to be redeemed? Behold, Hashem said to Abraham, that the Jewish people, there was a prophecy, there was a prediction, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not a prediction, a guarantee. Am Yisrael is going to be in a strange land, strangers in a strange land for 400 years, and they're going to be enslaved there. Am Yisrael says we only have 210 years. We didn't reach the final time yet. We're not there yet. How can you say that Moshiach is here already? We're not there yet. We haven't reached that time. Amar lahem. So Moshe Rabbeinu responds, Hashem wants to redeem you. Hashem doesn't look at your cheshbonos. He doesn't look at your calculations as to how long and when it's going to be. Hashem, as the continuation of the pasuk in Shir HaShirim, in Song of Songs, and by the way, the pasuk is in chapter 2, verse 8 of Shir HaShirim. The pasuk says, Hashem skips over the mountains. Medrash says that when it says over here, the concept of mountains, Hashem skips from mountain to mountain, it means it's referring to the kitzim and the iburim. Kitzim are set times. There are times in history that could have been a moment of Geula, had the potential to be the time when Hashem would redeem us. These are called kitzim. A ketz is an end point. So Hashem says, you think that the end point is the year 400, but I'll tell you, this year 210 is also an end point. If you count back from the birth of Yitzchak, we'll count the time that Yitzchak, from when he was born and they were strangers in a strange land, is Eretz Canaan itself. Didn't yet belong to Am Yisrael. Can count that way. This could be an end point. So Hashem skips from mountain to mountain, from end point to end point, and he says, I'm going to skip back. I'm going to move things up. It's not a problem. Hashem says, I'm gonna make it work out. This is your month. This is your month, which I'm just thinking now as I'm reading it. The concept of this is your month also has to do with Am Yisrael being involved in the Iber, being involved with adding extra months to the year, which has to do with, it's right, Elakitzim ve'iburin. And you can check out my Moshiach podcasts where we spoke about what happens in a leap year. We spoke about 5784, which began with October 7th, and it was a leap year, and it had a very special power. So it's connected to this. I'm not going to get into it at all. Another pshat that has to do with Moshe. We're going to see, there's a song you might know, We're going to see that it can be referring to Moshiach, it can be referring to our times. But in the first few pshatim, it's talking about Moshe. A similar idea. When he says to them, Moshe says to them, this is the month, you're going to be redeemed. How can you say we're going to be redeemed? We don't have good deeds. We're not righteous enough. We've been slaves. We can't focus on spirituality. We're not like the Avos. We're not like Avram Avinu who went and did chesed. We're not like Yaakov who sat and learned in the Beis Medrash of Shem and Aver. We don't have it. Moshe Rabbeinu responded and said, Hashem wants to redeem you. He's not looking at your actions, your mistakes. He's not looking at your averis. Hashem is not looking at you. He's looking at the tzaddikim. He's looking at Amram. Amram was Moshe Rabbeinu's father. He's looking at those who had good deeds. He is ignoring the negative. He's looking at the positive. The mountains can also refer to the courts, to the Jewish courts, to those who are trying to help Am Yisrael do what's right. Hashem is like jumping from one place to another, meaning he's looking at the good parts. He's looking at the righteousness. He's looking at those who are doing what's right in Am Yisrael. Pasuk refers to the place where people would go for Torah judgment, for Torah guidance, as mountains. So Hashem bounces from one mountain to the other. He focuses on the good. So this is the second understanding. Hashem, first shot is, I'm not looking at your cheshbainis, when it's supposed to be, how many years, I'm going to make it work. Second shot is, I'm not looking at the fact that you're not such tzaddikim. I'm going to look at those who aren't tzaddikim for you. Third understanding is talking about Moshe Rabbeinu. Similar idea. They say, how can you redeem us? We don't deserve it. We're idolaters. We are serving idolatry. Chazal say, the Egyptians serve idolatry. The Jews were serving idolatry. How can you redeem us? We have no relationship with you, Am Yisrael said. The entire Egypt is dirtied from the avodas gilulim, from the service that we serve the idols. Hashem wants to redeem you. He's not looking at your idolatry. He jumps, in this case, not from mountain to mountain, but he jumps over the mountains. Because the mountains, as we'll see, mountains were the places where they had the idolatrous temples. We find the pasuk says in Hosea, on the very high mountains was where they would perform their idolatry, perform their service of idolatry. So Hashem jumps over the mountains. He doesn't look at your idolatry. Don't worry, you're going to be redeemed. This is it. This is the moment. This is the month. We're going to talk about Moshiach very, very shortly. And we're going to talk about us very shortly. But just think about it for a moment. Like, Am Yisrael is saying, we don't deserve it. It's finally the moment you've been waiting for. You know, Yosef told the brothers, Hashem is going to take us out of here. B'koid yifkoid, Hashem eschem. Hashem is going to take you out. They had a prophecy. They knew it was going to happen. They knew it was coming. They knew that there was going to be an endpoint to their suffering. Am Yisrael feels guilty. We don't deserve it. We recognize our faults. We recognize that our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not such that He should save us. Who are we? We're idolaters. We have no good deeds. The time is not yet ripe, Am Yisrael says. And Hashem says, no, don't think of it that way. I can make it right. If I determine that this is the time, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to figure it out. It sounds very much like, a couple who's in love. The Chazal say, Ahava mekalkelis is ashura. The love, when a person's in love, so you don't notice the other person's faults. When a person has an overwhelming feeling of love towards others, think about your relationship with your kids. I don't know about you, but nobody's perfect. But I feel like I don't focus on I try not to focus on the faults of my kids. I see the beauty. I see the specialness. I see the amazing thing. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says the same thing. Hashem says, I know you've made mistakes. I know you served idolatry. I know that you don't have as much mitzvahs as you'd like. I know the time hasn't, so to speak, come, but I'm gonna make it work. I'm gonna figure it out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, it's time to start anew. I want you to know the newness, HaChodesh, the word Chodesh, which means the month. This is your month. Nissan is your month. Nissan is the month of newness. Of the grass is growing. The flowers are blooming. Everything is wonderful. I'm looking past. I'm past the dark winter. I'm past all of the cold. We're in a new place today, Hashem is saying to Am Yisrael. And it's important for us as we think about who are we today? Am Yisrael today. We're such tzaddikim, we can't figure out how to love each other. Am Yisrael, half of Am Yisrael, more than half is not even religious, has no connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem's going to bring Moshiach to our generation. Who are we? Have 2,000 years passed? Have we reached the end point? You don't even know how long it's supposed to be. They at least had a prophecy of 400 years. We don't even know how long it's going to be. Have we gotten there? It's been so long. We're the ones that are going to see Mashiach. We're going to be the ones that are going to greet Mashiach. The Beis HaMikdash is going to come down from the heavens in fire. Or maybe we're supposed to build it, and we're going to be the ones to build it in this Medina. This secular state is going to build the Beis HaMikdash. Can it be? Let's see the answer. Rav Yudin v'Rav Chunya. Rav Yudin and Rav Chunya have two different pshatim, two different understandings of this pasuk. Kol din yezebah. That is not, until now we said it's talking about Moshe, it's talking about the original geula, the original redemption of Am Yisrael, when the Jewish people was taken out of Egypt. But Rav Yudin and Rav Chunya say differently. Rav Yudin v'Shem Rabbi Eliezer ben Yosef Yossi Aglila, Rav Chunya b'Shem Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Amar Kol din yezebah ze melech HaMoshiach. This is the King Moshiach. And this is a medrash in Shir Hashirim, but this is also a medrash in the Psikta Rabti, and there's a little slight change in the language, and I'm gonna say the medrash over in the language of the Psikta Rabti, Mashiach's gonna come. Mashiach's gonna come, hopefully this year. And he's gonna say, on Rosh Chodesh Nissan, he's gonna say, this is your month. 2 weeks before Pesach, he's gonna say, this is your month. This is when you are to be redeemed. Mashiach's gonna say this to us. And Am Yisrael is going to respond, Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach. Just like we said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Rabbeinu Moshe, our teacher Moshe. With all due respect, our teacher, Melech HaMashiach, the king, Mashiach, he's going to be, I don't know, as great as Moshe, maybe greater, I don't know exactly. He's going to be a Navi, he's going to be a prophet. He's going to be a huge Talmid Chacham. He's going to be an incredible leader. Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach. Am Yisrael says to him, our teacher, King Mashiach, Heich Anu Nigolim. How can we be redeemed? Now I'm reading from the Psikta Rabti. Lo kach Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu shehu meshavdeinu b'shivim umois. Did Hashem not say that before Mashiach comes, I'm intentionally not, I'm adding in words to what the Medrash says. Did Hashem not say that we're going to be enslaved to the 70 nations? And I'm adding, today we're not enslaved to the 70 nations. We have our own country. We have our own land. Am Yisrael 7.7 million strong is living here. Are we enslaved? Anybody can come. You don't have to stay in Gullus. You don't have to stay in New York. You don't have to stay in California, in Canada, in South Africa, in Europe, in Australia. You can come home. You're not meshubed. You're not enslaved to the nations of the world. So, Am Yisrael says, maybe we don't deserve it. Maybe we didn't, you didn't come yet until now. Maybe we don't, we haven't fulfilled the full enslavement. Maybe the fact that we have back Eretz Yisrael now is taking away from, it's holding off Geula. So Mashiach gives two answers to this question. There's two different girsais here. One of them is Britannia, which means Britain. There's a different girsa, Sramtim, which means that if, let's say, there's just one Jew left in Galus, let's say there's just one Jew in Britain, one Jew in America, one Jew left in Iraq, one Jew left in Australia. As long as there's a Jew there, you are still, it's considered that you're all still in exile. And that's all, that we don't need we don't need everyone to be in Galus. Just having one there is enough for it to be considered that we're all there. It's enough of his chus. It's enough of a pain. It's enough of a shibud, of an enslavement, to be a kapara for Am Yisrael, that he can say, yes, now is the time. You've already fulfilled all of the conditions that are necessary for you to experience Mashiach. And another explanation, and again, I'm explaining it based on the conditions of today, because the Parsha here is that it's talking about before Am Yisrael, or at a time when Am Yisrael never went into Galus. This medrash must have been written before we were in Galus, because it's saying we're not meshubed. We're not enslaved to the 70 nations, and obviously we have been for 2,000 years. So I'm explaining it to mean that it's talking about now when we're no longer under their boot. Well, I'll tell you something else. And I'm again translating it for today. Am Yisrael is affected by the Ummah Salam. You want to say that we're in Eretz Yisrael, we're back here, and we're no longer in exile. There's truth to that. But at the same time, there's something called the UN. and in the UN, one representative of each of the 70 nations of the world gets up and they all vote and they keep on passing resolutions in the Security Council against one tiny country over and over again. It's called Israel, the Jewish people. Says the Medrash, if even one leader from one country anywhere is having a negative impact on the Jews wherever they are, if one representative of the Kuthites comes and he's Meshabed Am Yisrael, I consider it as if the entire nation of Kutim is Meshabed us, is putting us under his boot. So it's an amazing thing what comes out of this Medrash. The United Nations, which has single representatives of each country, that's it. When they pass a resolution against the Jewish people, that counts. We can totally hear what the Medrash is saying. That counts as if we are under their boots still. Hashem considers it. He's saying it's considered as if you are still under their boot, and therefore don't worry. You have earned it. You have earned Moshiach. You have earned redemption. You've suffered. You are suffering. You are suffering every time they pass a negative resolution against you. You are suffering, despite the fact that it's not the same as it once was. Mashiach finishes off. Rabbeinu, Mashiach, Tzidkeinu. Rabbeinu, Melech HaMashiach. Our teacher, our king, our teacher. Mashiach Tzidkeinu, not Moshe Rabbeinu. Mashiach Tzidkeinu. He finishes off and says, this is your month. This is your time of Geula. Meaning, Hashem says, you can make all your cheshbonos, you can say all of your reasons why you think you don't deserve it. You're maybe not good enough, maybe you're not from enough, maybe Am Yisrael is too far from me. And let's remember, everything that happened in the original Geula, everything that happened in the Geulas Mitzrayim, the redemption from Egypt, is applicable and reiterates in our times as we get closer and closer to Mashiach, which is so close. It's the same thing. Am Yisrael is not worthy, maybe. It's not really the time, maybe. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, don't give me any of your maybes. I'm going to tell you the absolute. The absolute is HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. This is your month. This is your moment. This is the time for renewal for Am Yisrael. And I'm going to make it work. So, okay, maybe you're not meshubed as much as you were before. I consider it as if you are enslaved to the nations. Don't give me any kinds of cheshbonos. Don't give me any kinds of calculations. Maybe Mashiach shouldn't come yet. Maybe we're not good enough. I'm going to skip. Medalig el haorim. I'm going to skip over the mountains. I'm going to move mountains, as it were, in order to be goyal, in order to redeem you. That's what my relationship with you looks like. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying to Am Yisrael. It's very encouraging. It's very encouraging because it's very easy to think, who are we? Look at what's going on throughout the world, the challenges that we are having, the challenges in Israel. The country is a secular country, after all is said and done. Jewish frum boys want to sit and learn. They're going to become outlaws. It's not what we wish. It's not how we want it to be. It doesn't look like the way it should look. And who's to say that we deserve a real Mashiach to come? Who are we? We're a troubled people. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, stop talking that way. Stop talking that way. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I love you. Kol Doidi, my beloved's voice is coming. This is the time. Zeh Melech HaMashiach. This is the voice. This is the response of Mashiach. When he's going to arrive, he's going to tell us the way it is. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to look at all the negative. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to look at the positive. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to make it work, and He's going to make it work. I want to bless you and ask you to bless me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us to have the insight, to have the understanding of what it means that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to make it work, how much love He has for us, how much love He has for an imperfect people. And if it's true on a national level, it's also true on an individual level. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us so much. And we need to love who we are and try our best to be the tzaddikim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at. To try our best to be the ones who indeed help bring merit for others. But no matter what, to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares about us, and also for us to reflect that in our relationships with others. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us to look past the little things, or even the big things that we feel are not perhaps as much as we would like from our kids, from our friends, our spouses, and even in our relationship with Hashem. Hashem should help us to skip over it, And in that merit, I'm sure that we will be able to have this conversation, to experience ourselves a conversation with Moshiach, Rabbeinu, Melech HaMashiach, our teacher, the King, Moshiach. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.